It's always fun to go back in time with Jeremy Sink. On this episode, we talked about the media. Coach Sink's wife used to write for the News in Advance. Coach Sink saw a lot of media in Buchanan as a athlete. Then later he becomes a coach. Then later he becomes an athletic director. How's it all changed? We talked about that and more. And what does an athletic director do during the summer? We recorded this interview about a week ago with Jeremy Sink, athletic director at Jefferson Forest, here on the Sports Buffet podcast. Talking to Jeremy Sink, we kind of went back in time beforehand. Good thing that I'm glad to know the drinks are staying cool.
They are staying cold.
So, you're at the end of one season and you're going into another, so now is a good time because it's kind of a slower time for the ADs. What do you do when it's a slower time?
Honestly, it's the look at the schedules ahead, look at what we have coming up in the fall, what we have coming up in the winter, starting to formulate the stuff in the spring. Typically the fall. I mean, the fall's done. Between scrimmages, district schedules.
You don't do anything in the fall, so that's good. I mean, in all seriousness, it's good to prepare a season ahead. You don't get that luxury because you can't prepare for spring and winter.
Sure.
Because you're always doing something.
Sure.
You can't prepare for winter and fall. Like
today, just cleaning out the golf carts, getting things, putting stuff away.
The little things people don't see.
Sure. Well, yesterday, Trinae and I we started shuffling this year's trophies to a more presentable area. We keep them in the front office during the year as they pile up, and we put them out there in a more visible place come for next season, and you kind of shuffle out. I think we took stuff off the wall that was in there from like 2010, 2011. So, decade plus, moving stuff, a little shuffling things around. But it's been a very laid back kind of week after coming back from vacation, but just crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, getting ready for next year.
You're about the same age as me. I actually had a birthday, didn't get any cake or any cards or any money. Unfortunate, but I expect nothing less out of you at this point.
Well, I did have a nice little gift package here.
You did. It was a care package. It was very nice. But you and I are around the same age. You come from a smaller town, Buchanan. Sure. You had the Roanoke area as your media hub.
Sure, yeah. Roanoke Times, Roanoke Valley, WDBJ, WSLS. I was probably more of a Channel 7 guy during those years. And then when you come on this side of the mountain, you realize that WSET is the coverage area here in terms of the TV media.
The question is, how have you seen it change since then from now?
Oh, man.
Now till how? You know what I'm saying?
I remember the Friday Football Extra with Mike Stevens and Roy Stanley. We're throwing some names out there, right? And Grant Kilson, a friend of mine, years down the road.
Sorry to hear that, Grant.
We're talking. And with Travis, the way things have evolved from that, where it was just Channel 7, like everyone would get together at someone's house post Friday night. Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, you're looking to see who's the stopper of the week. I remember Bath County had won a state championship, and we shut them out the very next year, so we were the stopper of the week. I remember that being a big deal. And I remember
Pole Buster.
Yeah, oh man, the Pole Buster was huge. And then little by little, the other stations starting to pick it up. And Jermaine Farrell with WFXR does a tremendous job covering just a lot of different areas. I feel like you see, everyone's trying to bounce around on Friday night and seeing who all is out there. But I'll tell you, it's news stations have a tough job. Probably the media has a tougher job now than they ever have. I've seen it because my wife was on the inside track, remember? So
right, couch potato.
100%. She was in the News in Advance for 15 years.
I'm not saying she's a couch potato. That was the name of her column.
Yep, her column was a couch potato.
Yeah.
And so I got to see a lot of cool TV shows. The pilots, before anyone else did, I always thought that was one of the coolest things. We would watch a show, and she would kind of get me into it, and then she's like, move on to the next one. But the way that news stations, whether it be print or media, the way that they have shrunk,
right,
and more is expected with less. I will say that when her and I first got together, and I saw the newsroom, the sports newsroom at the News in Advance, Nathan Waters and Andy Bitter and Chris Lang and Damian Sorled and Ben Cates, and Ben was kind of more on the music scene, the entertainment scene of that part at that time, and then little by little,
because there was still Ted Allen too, I think.
That might have been
or
before
was
my
he?
time.
Okay, so Ted may have transitioned out because you used to have one preps guy. You had a full-time Liberty. Lang eventually was the Liberty beat writer,
Right.
then Damien. But I mean, you had other people. Waters did tech a lot. Obviously before that we can go in.
It's pretty awesome. Like I was at a lot of those sports guys' weddings, and they were at ours. And being in that news scene and getting to see a front row seat to and hear some really cool stories of these guys who had covered some of my favorite players and coaches and that kind of thing. But eventually, now you see it's Bryson by himself, and before Bryson was Bryson and Ben. I mean, that was the sports crew here the last couple of years, and now Bryson's kind of running solo a little bit.
By the way, some of those old timers like Nathan, Andy Bitter before your time, but I think of Andy, Virginia Tech writer. Yeah. Those guys were good interviews too, by the way, because I got to interview them back in the day. So they're good guys in terms of interviews.
Absolutely.
But then now you've got Bryson pretty much doing a one-man show. Unfortunately, the media industry is what it is now in terms of it's journalism. I don't feel like is a 100% safe environment anymore unless you go electronic.
For sure. And Bob, guys like yourself are so important.
I'm not media.
Well,
I'm a promoter.
But you're someone who covers so much of this area and beyond in the local sports scene. And honestly, we rely on you probably more now than we ever have to get our stories out there about our kids and about our teams.
Props to Brian with Life, Liberty, and Happiness.
Sure. Because
the podcast they do, I know they covered some men and boys and girls basketball games here, and they've essentially kind of become, for high school sports, what the Bedford Bulletin used to be.
Right. I mean, there's not even a sports section in the Bedford Bulletin anymore, which is crazy. The Fincastle Herald, back on the other side of the mountain, it's a part of the same company, but the Time, the Fincastle Herald, the Salem Times. But Brian Hoffman, who's been there forever and covered games, both as a photographer and as a writer when I played, and before that, obviously, and he's still doing it. So when I see Brian, we always catch up. And of course, we had our time when I was an athlete, my time as a coach. I see him at the Salem Baseball Hall of Fame dinner usually every year, and we catch up. But yeah, no, we're blessed in this area to have as much coverage as we do, because I know that. Some people say, well, it's not like what it used to be, but that's everywhere. So It's not like it's just a here thing. It's just print and news media in general has shrunk. Shout
out to Eric Johnson of Channel 10, who always comes to signing days.
Absolutely.
As well. So who was the first person that interviewed you? Do you remember? I didn't mean to catch you there mid-sip.
No, the very first one was probably Brian Hoffman.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh, outside. Okay, let me put it this way: outside of a local, the Fincastle paper or a Bedford Bulletin or whatever, do you remember your first person?
First person on? We're talking media, or are we talking?
Yeah, the yearbook doesn't count.
One of the first times that you and I got together, I think that might have been the first time I had been on camera.
We didn't walk to left field back then.
We didn't walk to left field back then. It was just, hey, here we are. What's up?
And then your cast of characters were photobombing you, because back then you don't have photo bombs because everything is written.
Mike Schaefer and Kyle Goddard used to absolutely love standing behind you when you were interviewing me to try to get a crack.
Well, then they would stand behind you sometimes. And I remember the time you got hit by the water cooler.
Got hit by the water cooler and got doused after we won. But
the people interviewing now have to be aware of where the cooler is, because
at all times.
Somebody might get hit with it, and guess what? I'm not like these, Major League Baseball reporters. I don't look good wet at all.
On a hot day, I don't mind the douse. But if it's a cold day, I'm like, whew, I don't. That's a badge of honor. You wear it no matter how cold it is or how hot it is. But when it's hot, obviously it feels a lot better.
I'm not wearing my flippers or anything like that. So, but back again, staying with media for just a moment. Do you remember the first? I mean, when the TV camera's out there to shoot highlights of a football practice or a football game, I mean, it's a big deal, especially for and I don't mean to put down James River, but James River is not close to the metropolis of DBJ.
Yeah, the hubbub of the Roanoke Valley or the Hill City area.
It's off the beaten path.
for
a
sure.
little bit.
You know, I remember. I do remember that when we won we won the Pioneer District in '99 for the first time at James River in baseball since 1979. So it was a 20-year hiatus, and the news came out and covered it. I want to say it was Grant. It came out to the school, and honestly, it was the only practice I remember that we had indoors that spring. It felt like, and it would happen to be that day. So it's like, you know, how great is it to practice indoors in baseball when you're in the gym, and you know you're throwing in the gym, you're doing what you can. But I remember that interview because it was in the gym that day, and it was right after we had won the Pioneer District in 1999.
Did anybody ever talk about teaching you hey, say this or don't say this when you?
No. I tell you what, in college we did talk a little bit about that through one of our classes.
Because you don't know who to trust.
Sure. Now, in Dr. Jimmy Rue, in our public speaking course that we took through when I was first a comm major, Dr. Jimmy Rue taught public speaking, and it was one of the things that we talked about in there, like how to handle an interview. Mm-hmm. So that was I do remember that.
Can I be rude for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, good. Love being rude, especially to Jeremy Sink, by the way. You know, the sports outside of football are not covered on a main scale in high school sports. However, I can argue James River had one of the bigger non-football athletes ever, maybe around this area in Tincher.
Absolutely.
I can argue you had a really good coach, too, in Goad. You had really good success when Ethan Humphreys and everybody like that's playing there, too. Yeah. But still, it's not like you're just, you know, unless you get to Richmond for the state title or something like that, you're not getting a ton of, media on Mike Goad's back or, this or that.
Even before Mike was John Shotwell.
Right.
And Shotwell just passed here recently, local legend, long-time basketball coach, ton of wins. Long-time softball coach, ton of wins. Long-time golf coach, and he was a tremendous golfer. Coach Shotwell, I remember attending his camp when I was a kid, and every single year he would sit there and shoot free throws. And at this time, he's not in his elderly years, but he's still coaching. I mean, he's just one after another, just. I
love the sound effect of poop, poop, poop.
just
right.
Nothing but net. And as a kid, I remember thinking to myself, here's this coach, this legendary coach, and was teaching us how the form and how to have a routine at the free throw line. And he was just one after another. And he was the same way on the golf course. Coach Shotwell would be the guy who would get up on the green and he'd take your money on the green. But guys like Shotwell and Mike Goad and Garrett Ferguson was my baseball coach. Randy Howard was my basketball coach. People who were there a long, long time. John Baker was my dad's coach, and he was a football coach there a long time and had bounced around. His son Jack, of course, coached at Rustburg and Allegheny and Nelson County, and he's back down at James River now, full circle, right? But you're talking about Tincher. That was actually my first year right out of college because my brother was a senior. They graduated together, and I got to have a front row seat to those games in the playoffs because I was coaching baseball at James River at that time. But when we were finished and they went on to their state run, going to those games and just seeing how dominant she was. I mean, I've seen a lot of great pitchers over the years, but you get kind of spoiled your first time out and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a generational player. So
right. And when you see, there have been girls around this area who have had numbers retired, who have gone to, Power 4 schools, but maybe it's only to me since I paid attention, but Tincher to me is kind of the one that, I don't want to say maybe put it on the map, but she went, if I'm not mistaken, professional softball.
I remember when.
Am I right?
She did. She did not make the Team USA, but Team USA, they came and played against. I forget who she was.
I want to say it was like an Ohio.
Yeah,
based
and
team.
She went against Jenny Finch, and she beat Team USA. That was huge.
Jenny Finch, probably the face of softball, at least for America, because Jenny Finch also now we're getting into a time to where I'm not trying to put anybody down, but looks also matter at this point for female athletes, and Finch was, I think, viewed as that attractive mainstream person.
They took the field at Kiwanis at Salem, and one of the most beautiful facilities, still to this day, my favorite park to play in, my favorite park to coach in. During my time with the Rails, I remember right before the summer had gotten started, they dug up the existing base grass infield and to make it all dirt for Team USA to play.
Kiwanis is where the Salem minor league team played before they play at Salem Memorial.
The Salem Redbirds,
yep.
the Salem Buccaneers. That's who I knew it as, and that's who, when you watch the movie Bull Durham,
yep.
when he's talking to the guy, when Kevin Costner's talking to the batter about not digging in or whatever. He tells him he's about to throw a breaking ball, right? But you see the Salem Buccaneers logo on the guy's chest. I always think back to that. Like, hey, that's... And when you watch the movie, like, that's for my area,
yep.
right? But they dug up this just generational, decades grassroots system, so thick, dug it all up to make a dirt infield for Team USA to come play. And it was a big deal because they came to Salem, and obviously they sold tickets, and it was probably one of those kind of sellout moments. But I will say that the root system since, like, it's still good, don't get me wrong, but there was nothing like that surface back then. It was just something about that grass.